And we are live. Welcome to the Sports Sesh podcast. I'm your host, Mason Shatwell, and today I'm joined by the UFC's very own Smilin Sam Alvey. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I'll go back to your last fight. Obviously, on Fight Island, UFC 254 Khabib Gaethje. Obviously, I'm not saying it just because you're here. I was putting it in all the group chats. I had the fight down 29-28 your way, obviously. When it got called out as a draw, obviously one judge, I'm sure, scored it for you and the other scored it for Dan Young. When the judge, Ben Cartledge, called it out 28-28, what went through your mind when, obviously, it was declared a draw?
I couldn't believe it. I was my boxing coach. So I in my corner, I had my wife, my boxing coach. My boxing coach has been with me for, I don't know, 25 fights or so. And I don't think he has ever once told me that I won a round. I after round one, he said, you won round one. After round two, he said, yeah, you won round two. And then round three, he said, yeah, you lost round three. But you won the fight. I mean, we were sure we won the fight. And then they called the draw, and I couldn't believe it. I don't know what I have to do to get a judge to like me. But that was a good fight. It was a very intelligent fight on both sides. It was a good fight. And then for the judges to do that to me, I was very upset. But he was a heck of a guy. And at least it was an entertaining fight.
100%. Well, first, tell us about your experience of Fight Island. Was it as great as it seems through the pictures?
Yeah, Fight Island was so nice. When I first heard about Fight Island, I thought it was going to be like a Kumite, like just some deserted island out in the middle of nowhere. And it was a very established island. There were hotels and condos. There's an F1 racetrack going through the hotel. It was very cool. And then the beach is beautiful. They had the cage on the beach. The temperature, the time of year I went, the temperature was just perfect. The time zone messed with me a little bit, but it all worked out in the end. It was a wonderful experience.
Well, when I first got in contact with you, it was because I seen your TikTok online. Obviously, what made you decide to make a TikTok? Was it just to share your stories through MMA and all that's gone on through the years?
No, I'd never heard about TikTok. I mean, I heard about TikTok, but I'm so over social media. All of it's just such a pain in the butt to do. And then I teach a lot of students, a lot of MMA classes. And one of the parents, oh, you should get on TikTok. It's a lot of fun. I said, okay, I'll try. So I went on there and I just loved it. It was like immediate. It's like, wow, this is the greatest thing humans have ever done. This is better than the moon landing. TikTok is. So I immediately started getting into it. I had some fun at the beginning, and everyone says you just keep posting until you find your voice. And I think I found my voice now. I'm in the UFC behind the scenes. I'll give all the fans a little look that they might not be able to get elsewhere.
Well, some of the questions I got today are what I've seen on your TikTok, because some of them has interested me quite a bit. But while we was on the topic of social media, I seen on one of your videos, you said you sparred with the YouTuber Logan Paul when he was like preparing for his fight last year. What was that experience like going over to LA and sparring with Logan?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. He was a good guy. I know he's a YouTube sensation, and he's big on Instagram, and actually he's big on TikTok now too. And I'd never heard of him before. I didn't. I was in Vegas for a fight award show, and his boxing coach recognized me. He said, "Hey, Sam." And he kind of looked me up and down, and he said, "Hey, you're about the same." He said, "Hey, you want to come spar with? Have you ever heard of Logan Paul?" I said, I haven't. I have not. So I Googled him. I was like, oh, he's like a huge thing on the internet. He said, yeah, he's pretty big, but he's got a boxing fight. So I said, oh, sure, I'd love to. Because I live about an hour and a half away from him. So they brought me out, and we had a couple good rounds. Got to meet him and his brother, and his girlfriend. They might still be together. I'm not sure. She was the lead actress in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I'd never watched the show at the time. I actually started watching it after I met her, and I love the show now. But yeah, it was so much fun watching those guys interact in a circle of people I would never be around. And then we got the spar, and we had some good rounds. He's a very athletic individual, and I was really happy to get to work with him a little bit.
Well, again with your TikTok, I seen you announced that you're moving back down to middleweight for your next fight, and I seen you said you'd like a fight with Jack Marshman. That excites you a bit. What about that fight excites you about the fight with Jack?
Jack, I wanted to fight him years ago. It just never worked out. It was never in the cards. I think when Dan Henderson was fighting Bisping for the last time, I think I was trying to get a fight with Jack so I could get on the card. He's always been a lot of fun. He just fought my teammate Sean Strickland. And Sean's been out for a minute, and it was a very entertaining fight. And I saw the fight and said, man, I would love to fight someone like that who's just got that power. I'm known for power. Marshman is too. And I think that fight would be just so much fun. Guaranteed, I'd leave with a black eye or two, and then I'd make sure he did too.
I asked, after I knew you was going to come on the show, I asked a few UFC fans if they had any questions, and it was one of my own anyway. But they all asked, "How do you keep smiling even during a fight?"
Well, have you guys seen my wife? My wife is hot stuff. She'll make anyone smile.
Yeah. Well, during a fight, again with your TikTok, you did a video the other day, and it was about how you don't touch gloves. Would you like to tell the viewers why you don't touch gloves during a fight?
Yeah, so I've been fighting now for about 15 years. I was amateur for about 4 months, and then I turned pro after that. My second professional fight was against a guy named Lucas Bauer. Good dude. We're cool now, but we went and touched gloves. We hit gloves, and he sucker punched me off the glove tap. He came over the shoulder and he hit me and he pushed me back into the corner. And while he was in the corner, trying to take me down, he said, "I'm so sorry, bro. I didn't mean to do that." And it's like, oh, that's okay. I knocked him out. I don't know, 30 seconds later, 45 seconds later, and won the fight. But it was a learning lesson. He said, don't touch gloves. They might. They'll never do it intentionally. Maybe they will, but probably they will never do it intentionally. But if it happens, and let's say he lands and he knocks me out, I just lost that fight. The fight is on from the beginning of the bell, not from the beginning of the knuckle touch. So I really try not to touch gloves until I have a little bit better read on the guy.
Well, while this was towards the beginning of your career, before even amateur, was there a deciding factor in your life that made you want to choose MMA as a sport, like full time?
No, nothing at all. I didn't grow up watching the UFC. I didn't grow up watching boxing. I was never in taekwondo. I hardly wrestled. I didn't know anything about it. Just somebody said, "Hey, there's a cage. You want to fight in it?" I said, "Yeah, okay, let's do that." And I just jumped in, and I haven't jumped out yet. I started training probably. I was 2-0 as a professional when I started training. And I loved it. I loved every second, every black eye I get. I love this. I love this sport.
Well, while you're talking about black eyes, what's the worst injury you've ever suffered in the octagon?
In the octagon, shoot, in the UFC, I haven't really been injured all that much. Hey, when I was in Bellator, I fought Carl Amasu. He broke a rib of mine, and that one hurt. But I still won the fight, but that one hurt. But the worst injury I've ever had was against Sean Strickland. He broke my jaw. He had a little kick up. He caught me, and you could see between my teeth. They split down the middle, and it was 6 weeks with my mouth wired shut, so I couldn't eat, drink, or do any of that.
While you're training in MMA at the beginning of your career, was there a factor? Obviously, you said there wasn't one that made you decide that you want to do it full time, but was there a factor that brought you to the sport of MMA, or is it just because you're a fan of fighting?
I thought I was tough. Honestly, growing up, I thought like Jackie Chan movies was actually how people fought. I thought that was what happened. I thought Rocky was a realistic representation of what fighting was. And so, well, shoot, I could do that. If Rocky Balboa can do that, Sylvester Stallone can. I could certainly do that. And it gave me the opportunity to do it. And I said, well, that was a lot different than I was expecting. And I just ran with it. I had such a good time losing my debut as an amateur. I said, well, let's do this. Let's do more of this. And then I did. And I found new places to call home, new places to fight and really enjoy what I do.
Well, at the moment, obviously, your recent run's not going to be what you want it to be. How do you stay motivated to keep on fighting during all that?
Because I don't accept any of those losses. I got Mark Goddard twice. I feel the Klitz and Abreu. I thought I won, but maybe not. I thought I won Ryan Spann, and I did not lose this last fight against Darwin Young. So the secret is in my head, I got a little fantasy world where I didn't lose any of them. I'm really six-fight winning streak right now.
Well, I think you fought twice now this year during the whole coronavirus pandemic. Obviously, first against Ryan Spann, and then obviously at UFC 254. What's it been like training and also fighting during these unprecedented times?
Training hasn't changed at all for me. I'm still at the gym all day, every day. And it was really no downtime for me. We kept going. The gym just never closed when all the quarantines and stuff were going into effect. So we just stopped posting about it and kept doing it. And as far as fighting changed a little bit because I couldn't be out there for quite as long as I like to be out there for the when it was in Florida. And then for the Fight Island, I was out there longer than I wanted to be out there. So it was a little different that route. You always have to, whenever there's cameras around, you have to wear the mask. You have to get tested and, everything's got to be safe and all that. But other than those little adjustments, it didn't affect me too much.
I was watching this fight again earlier on today. Rashad Evans, how did it feel fighting Rashad, such a legend in the sport?
It was great. He came out and I expected wrestling, but I didn't expect quite that much wrestling. Like it was a wrestling game plan. So I was very thankful for all the work Dan Henderson had done with me over the years, where I was able to stop, I think, every takedown Rashad Evans tried. And it was really, sorry, I got a lot of kids and they're all very loud. It was really an honor getting to share the cage with some. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. He's the first, actually at this point, he's the only UFC champion I've beaten. But he's a Hall of Famer now, and it's something nobody's ever going to be able to take away from me.
Well, during all this, obviously, it's not going to be the easiest of times to even train in. Next year, hopefully, we can see an improvement in the whole coronavirus situation. When do you think we can next see you in the octagon?
If I could fight again this year, I'll fight again this year. If not, it's going to be as early as I can next year. I would like to go back to Fight Island. I think they're going back in January, so maybe that could happen. I'm sure Jack Marshman's watching this podcast too. So if he wants to fight, hit me up. We'll talk to Mick together.
Yes, 100%. Well, I've still got a few questions here. What would you say is the most important factor of your type of martial arts? Would you say it's boxing, jiu-jitsu? What would you say your favorite type of martial arts is?
My favorite type of martial arts is I like boxing. I have so much fun boxing. I know it's not the most effective kind. As soon as you put the legs in there, it changes things. But boxing is such a science, way more than any other martial art. I've had such a good time learning it and trying to get better at it. Jiu-jitsu is a lot of fun. Wrestling's the hardest martial art of all of them. But boxing is probably my favorite.
Would you say the mental aspect of martial arts is more important than the physical?
I don't know. I've seen some nut jobs. Go in there and beat some really sane guys. So they're both needed, especially if you want to be one of the best in the world. You need to be able to focus on your training and life outside of it, but then you also need to have the physical attributes too. I've seen some very, very talented athletes who should be the best in the world, but they don't quite have. They get hurt too much, and getting hurt can ruin a career.
Well, during a fight week pre-coronavirus, what would be your weekly fight routine?
Fight week before, I go to wherever I'm going to fight. If I fight on Saturday, I'll get there the Saturday before, and then I spend all week just seeing the city. So I've fought. Let's see, I've had 20 fights in the UFC, and I think 14 of them have been outside of America. So I travel for almost all my fights, and I've experienced every city. I've experienced cities in Brazil and Poland and Australia and Florida. It's our country, but every city I fight in, I experience the city. So that's kind of what I do fight week. I learn a little bit about where I'm fighting.
Out of all the cities you've been to for fighting, which one would you say has been your favorite to visit?
My favorite city to fight in is Mexico City. I just loved Mexico City, and I fought there twice. I fought Rashad there, and then I also fought Alex Nicholson there, and I loved Mexico City. As far as just experiencing it, every country has its own little uniqueness. Brazil, Sao Paulo was beautiful. They had like this just a mile down the road, they had this park that was like Central Park of Brazil. It was just huge. And my wife and kid and I, we had a blast on there. Australia was wonderful. They had the Gold Coast. We went out and we snorkeled and stuff. Poland was great. We got to see, which sea was it? We stayed a day later and we went and saw some of the sea frontage over in Poland. So every city was wonderful to be in. But Mexico City was my favorite to fight in.
100%. For everyone that's watching, what would you say is the best tool in your arsenal?
My right hook. My right hook will kill anyone. I got that one-hitter quitter with that short little check hook. And it's landed a lot of times.
I think you've had around 50 professional fights, I think it is, or it could be a bit more. Who would you say out of everyone you fought has been your toughest opponent so far?
Nate Marquardt. Nate Marquardt was the toughest fight for me. He hits like a truck. He's stronger than any man should be. His jiu-jitsu was top notch. His boxing was good. He was my coach on The Ultimate Fighter. So when I got the opportunity to fight him, I jumped at it. And we just had a blast on the fighting each other for 15 minutes. But he was definitely my toughest opponent.
Well, I've been watching quite a few of the past series of The Ultimate Fighter, and it always looks like it's a good opportunity for young fighters and up-and-coming fighters. What was your experience like on the show?
It was definitely worth doing, but the show itself was kind of boring. You're stuck in a house with 15 other dudes that fight for 6 weeks. No internet, no girls, no wives, no dogs, no books, no anything. And so you just kind of talk about fighting for 6 weeks. And as much as I love fighting, it is not a great topic. Every meal, every second of the day.
Has there ever been an opponent that you've had any bad blood, would you say, with?
Really, no. I'm pretty likable guy, and most of the guys I fight, I choose to like them. I'd rather fight my friends than my enemies. So really, no. I've kind of enjoyed the company of all my opponents.
Who would you say is giving you the toughest fight? Apart from obviously Nate.
Caleb Nelson is his name. He was my first loss as a professional, probably 13 or 14 years ago now, and it was for 15 minutes. We just kind of beat each other up, and he beat me up a little more than I got him. And at the end of the fight, it was a rough feeling. It was like, I was beat up. He was bad too, but I was worse.
At the end of your career, has there been a moment so far that's going to stick in your mind that you think, right, that I've done that. That's going to be something you're going to be really proud of?
The knockout bonus against Cesar Ferreira, that was something that was pretty cool. It was early in my career in the UFC. And it was a guy I was supposed to lose to. I was a big underdog, and I knocked him out relatively easy. I think I threw one. I think it was my right hook. I threw one or two punches in the fight, and they both just connected in the right spot. And it's every couple months, the internet will say, "Oh, remember this?" and they'll tag me in it on Instagram and say, "Yeah, I remember that." So it was really a cool moment.
When you was growing up, was there any fighter in any of the combat sports that you looked up to in any sense?
No, growing up, I didn't watch any fighting. I didn't know any. I mean, I guess you count Jackie Chan, Obi-Wan Kenobi. They were two of my favorite fighters, I guess.
Who would you say, out of all the fights you've watched in the UFC or MMA altogether, which fight would you say is the best fight you've seen?
Best fight I've ever seen is one of the first fights I've ever seen. It was Clay Guida against Roger Huerta. And it's an old fight at this point, but it was really an enjoyable fight.
100%. I've got a few more. This I've just literally put on about an hour ago. Max Holloway and Calvin Kattar has just been announced. Seeing as you fight in the UFC, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I never like betting against Max. He's got such a high pace. I assume it'll be a 5-round fight.
Yeah.
And that 5 rounds really helps Max. So Calvin's good, but that pace that Max can put on is hard to overcome.
Well, during the whole coronavirus pandemic, out of all the fighters that has been stepping in the octagon, which one has impressed you the most?
Who's that boy that keeps fighting, every week? He fought in 10 days notice.
Hamza.
Yeah, that's the one. That's cool. I'm a guy who likes to fight a lot, and he's beaten my record. So that was pretty cool.
Well, obviously, all the fighters have been putting in all the work, so we can during this time, we can only give him the utmost respect. But going back to past fighters, or maybe fighters that are still fighting today, who would you say is the GOAT of MMA in your opinion?
George St. Pierre. And I don't think there's a close second. Mighty Mouse, it'd be for number 2, it'd be Mighty Mouse or maybe Khabib. Khabib still hasn't defended his title all that much, but he's the dominance he has shown has just been incredible. So GSP is definitely number 1. Then it'd be Khabib or Mighty Mouse. Stipe'd be on that short list too. Maybe Stipe'd be number 4.
100%. And then just a couple more. Out of the, like, when you're watching a fight, say an opponent you've got coming up, for example, when you've got a fight coming up, would you watch an opponent's fight in depth, or are you quite laid back in that sense of not worrying too much about what they do and focusing more on what you do?
No, I watch everything, especially when I first find out who I'm fighting. I'll have me and all my coaches. I'll make my wife and I'll make lunch for them, and we'll sit down and we'll watch the footage on who we're fighting, and we have a good time with that. And then every day I run, and every day I'll run on that treadmill and I'll watch fights with the guys I'm gonna fight. My last 2 have been harder to find because they're fairly new to the UFC. But like when I fight Rashad, I have hundreds of fights I could choose from, and so I like watching fights. I like watching fights. But I like really understanding how good somebody is.
When we was talking towards the beginning, and you said you were going to go back down to middleweight and hopefully fight Jack Marshman, do you think at your age, I know obviously you're not too old, but do you think it's going to be a bit more of a struggle to make 185, or do you think that weight cut's going to be quite laid forward for you?
It's going to be the same as every other weight cut. It's how much work you're willing to put in before the weight cut. And I am as mentally strong a fighter as there's ever been. I can sit in that bathtub or that sauna for as long as I need to lose the weight. And I'll make sure I stay on that treadmill. I'll make sure I watch my diet, and I'll make sure I do everything right prior to that.
Well, I know you're quite busy, so I'll just ask one more question. For an up-and-coming fighter, what one piece of advice would you give?
Could you say it one more time?
For an up-and-coming young fighter, if you could give one piece of advice, what would you give?
Enjoy. I'll give 2 pieces. One, find a way to wrestle. Find a wrestling gym that just wrestles and wrestle. But then number 2, which is almost as important, is enjoy it. Too many, especially as young guys, they put so much stress on themselves. Remember, as an amateur, your fights don't matter. It's only experience. As a young pro, they do matter, but enjoy the moment. You are doing something so few people in the history of the world have ever had the opportunity to do. Enjoy it. Revel in that moment of glory that you get as everybody cheers for you or boos for you or just watches you as you walk to that cage in your hometown. Just enjoy. Try to enjoy every second of it.
100%. Well, I know you're busy, so I'll end it there. I just wanted to say thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, hey, thank you for having me on, my friend.
No worries. I look forward to seeing you in the octagon next.
All right. I look forward to it too. We'll talk to you again.
100%.